which lets me know that we are live and we're going and we're running with another episode of the OhJordzOhShow. Show. Very fun, very special guest today from Fox 11 WLUK, Scott Hurley. Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, no problem, Jordan. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Scott, what's your background with digital media?
My background is I've been a digital content producer in some form or another for about 13 years now. I started as a news reporter out of college. I worked at a radio station in Baraboo, TV station in Wausau, and then made my way to Fox 11 here. And then when Fox 11 transitioned to new ownership in 2007, the digital position became available. I thought that was interesting. That it was something that had always interested me. And I was looking for a little bit of a change of pace from, covering some of the stuff on the street as a reporter that you often see. So I slipped into that side in 2007, and in 2016, the station created the position of digital executive producer. So it's a management position, and with really more formal oversight of our digital and social products. So I've been doing that since 2016.
Where did you go to school, and what did you go to school for originally?
I went to UW-Madison and double majored in communication arts and Spanish. So communication arts with a radio, TV, film emphasis. So, kind of going into school for broadcasting. And then, like I said, once I was in the working world, made that transition over to the digital side.
What was the digital department like in 2007? Because I feel like in 5 years it's been social media and digital was very different. 10 and 15 years ago it had to have been very, very different.
Absolutely. What we had at that time was just a website. Our process for posting video to the website was not real great. We had to actually, we still have to wait for video to air usually if we're clipping it from the show, but the transcoding process to get it over to the website was a lot slower. At that time, there was no social media, so we weren't concerned with that, of course. It was just putting news on the website, and it was something that was really starting to be done at that time. Our previous owners were forward thinking in a lot of ways, but they had kind of held back a bit on web just because of monetary issues. At that time, the big question was, what's the return on the investment for a website? How are people even advertising on web, or can you even make money on web? Of course, our bread and butter, as it still is today, but even more so at that time, was the TV product. So our previous owners felt like it was more worth our time and energy to go into TV as opposed to putting a lot on the website. As things transitioned again into kind of a newer world, like I said, we were sold around 2006 or 2007, and we launched a new website at that time, fairly primitive, but we actually began to post news on the website on a daily basis, which is something we really hadn't done too much before that.
What was there training involved with some of the I'm just gonna like Pete Petoniak, who's been doing it forever? Like, was there any coaching up with, like, this is how we post to Facebook and Twitter and everything like that? Was there any kind of a bit of a struggle, like with teaching some of that stuff to some of the like you say, like the stalwarts that have been around at Fox 11 forever?
I think pretty much for the most part, everybody has embraced it. The interesting thing about it for a lot of the on-air people that you see, and the producers behind the scenes too, who aren't, their jobs aren't dedicated to digital, it ends up being essentially extra work for everybody. Mm-hmm. So, that's probably the biggest hurdle is, where can people find time in their day to post to digital, to post to social? And when things first started before social media, it wasn't necessarily that bad of a thing for a reporter to just post their story as kind of an archive philosophy at the end of the day. Whereas nowadays, that's really not what you want to do, because we have people following news 24/7. People are looking on their social feeds all the time, and they're looking for news. And if we don't have a story, somebody else is going to. So there's a competitive aspect to getting news out in a timely manner nowadays that didn't exist really before social media.
Has the digital department faced any kind of spam issues or any issues leading up to the election? This is going to air probably a few weeks after the election, but we're 8 days out now for the biggest election of our lifetime. Have you guys faced any challenges with that?
In terms of cyber attacks and things like that, is that what you're?
Correct. Yes.
We have not been recently. The way local TV for the most part works nowadays is most websites are created and hosted by our parent company, which in our case is Sinclair Broadcast Group, which happens to be the largest owner of TV stations in the country. And they would handle all of that architecture and infrastructure and things like that at a corporate level. So that's not something that we would necessarily get involved with locally in terms of having to defend ourselves from it. That said, we always want to make sure that our, social media passwords locally are safe, that only the people with the proper credentials are able to get in, that kind of thing. We have had some cyber attacks on a corporate level in the past. And as far as what that means for us locally, it's kind of an inconvenience,
right,
that we can't post to the web for however long it takes to resolve it. It is a little scary too, because there's the potential of something going out on your website with your name on it that you didn't post. But for the most part, I think our security is pretty solid, and we haven't had that as a problem here, especially leading up to the election.
Just got to make sure everyone changes their passwords from Good Day Wisconsin 12345, right?
Right, exactly. And making sure that the people who have access to our station social media accounts are the right people we want in those positions.
What's your favorite social media platform?
My favorite platform to use professionally is probably Twitter, just because that's where you get that kind of constant stream of information. There's a lot of thought out there that, we as journalists use Twitter in a way that the general public doesn't. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, a lot of merit to it. Regular people aren't looking at Twitter the same way we are and looking at it, constantly 24/7 the way a news organization is. And frankly, the usage of Twitter is just far lower than Facebook. And if you look at, as an administrator, just looking at our viewer feedback and our engagement on Twitter versus Facebook, clearly more of our audience is on Facebook and using Facebook. And that's no surprise. It's, looking at our demographics, we're not broadcasting news to teenagers for the most part. We welcome them to watch, but generally speaking, I think we can all think back to when we were growing up and in high school. Watching the news wasn't exactly top of mind for us. So they're not the people who are following us on social media. It's the moms and the grandmas and people like that. And of course, I think we all know in our personal lives, where are they? They're on Facebook.
Right.
So from a professional standpoint, I think Facebook is the most important social media platform for us to be using. And it offers a little bit more flexibility, of course, than Twitter, because you have, you can do a little more with posting video and photos, and you can do a little more with links, and people can really engage, I think, in conversation more. And I think just in general, the public is more comfortable with how to use Facebook than how to use Twitter.
Yeah, I found that with some of my peers. I had convinced one of my close friends finally after a few years, he finally got on Twitter, and he said, like, I just don't know how to use it. I said, you just post on it. He said, well, is it like Facebook? I was like, yeah, it's like Facebook, but it's Twitter. And it was just kind of like like, well, you're saying what I'm saying, but you're not listening to what I'm saying. It's just, yeah, like I say, it's just the usability. Some people are just not on the train yet. So what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing with Twitter. If you look back to the early days of Twitter, it was a very bare bones platform. And, because they had their API open, there was a lot of user innovation. As far as people, you think back to TwitPic, remember using that, and then people going live with Meerkat and all that. And then those are things that Twitter either bought up or they built their own part of the platform for. So they, really let the users decide how to innovate. So I think that's kind of the neat thing about Twitter as it evolved. Facebook is a little bit more top down, saying this is how we want you to use our platform and this is how you're going to use it.
I kind of miss, I was on Twitter, I believe either summer of 2009 or summer of 2010. And I kind of miss how, like I say, like how bare bones it was, like felt a little bit more like a true discussion board, as opposed to now it's just 100,000 million people shouting all at once.
Yes, exactly.
How has work changed for you with the pandemic going on? Are you still working? Are you going to the office? Does your work allow you to work from home, or how does that work?
Well, I've been working from home pretty much the whole time since about mid-March. It's been, of course, luckily with my position, it's something that for the most part I can do from home. There are some things that I rely on people at the station to do in terms of switching video feeds for me and things like that. But for the most part, I can do most of my work from home, which makes sense given that I'm, working digitally. As long as I have power and an internet connection, I can do basically what I need to. It's been different in terms of, again, because I'm in a management role, I have two direct reports, two digital content producers that I also work with. So collaboration is a little bit difficult too. One of those producers is also working from home. Another one, because he's a bit newer, is still working at the station. But again, it's, you're trying to collaborate from a distance, and it's a question of, if you're sitting next to someone, you can, just say, hey, did you post this story? Okay, I'll work on this story. Even sometimes just exchanging a glance, you kind of know what the other person is thinking, and you can communicate that way. Working from home, you don't see the person, so it's a matter of you either have to dial the phone and hope they're there and hope they answer, and just ask a simple question of, did you post this to Facebook, or do you need me to do that? Or you send an email and wait for a response. So collaboration is more difficult, but I think as far as actually creating a story, that's not that much of a change. And of course, you miss having that face-to-face contact with the people at the station. On good day, we like to go out and, sometimes I'll take a camera into the studio and just get a short video of some, really cool guest we have in the studio and do a behind the scenes thing. Obviously, you can't do that when you're working from home. Even I think if I were at the station, there are limits to how many people can be in the same room at the same time, and getting within 6 feet of somebody is obviously a problem right now during the pandemic. So it's been something. It's been a challenge, but I think it's been really interesting to see how we've overcome that. I've listened to a few media podcasts, and one thing that keeps repeating, one theme you hear all the time, is that stuff that we never thought would be possible, or that we didn't think would be of acceptable quality in February, we were doing in March, and we've kind of been doing since then. So, from a broadcasting standpoint, it's an entirely different ballgame with people working from home. But from a digital standpoint, the work itself isn't that different. The atmosphere is obviously completely different, but the work itself is not all that different.
Right. At least now you can have access to whatever snacks you want, right?
Exactly.
My wife's been working from home since March, and as she says, well, we refer to our kitchen as the Commons. Like, oh, what do we have for our lunch today in the Commons? What do they got? Oh, tomato soup. Oh, perfect. I love the Commons. Yeah. So Scott, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. If there's any kind of accounts that you want to plug, or if you want to plug Fox 11 stuff, go for it. It's all yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, our website is fox11online.com. We're posting 24/7 around the clock. The latest news, weather, sports, everything that you see on TV and more is available at fox11online.com. We as a station are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so give us follows and likes on all those. You can follow me personally on Twitter and Instagram at WLUK_SH. And on Facebook, I'm at facebook.com/ScottHurleyNews.
Awesome. Thank you. You have a great one. Enjoy the rest of the day. Sun's coming out, so make sure you're outside for a little bit.
Great. Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you so much.